Hello YouTube, welcome to another video. In my previous videos I spoke about and showed the construction of one of my first homemade batteries made from old 18650s. I've now got 3 of those batteries in operation, but they're quite large, and so for the next battery I made after that I wanted to try and do something a bit more compact. So this video I'm just going to show you a couple of other designs that I've implemented for homemade batteries. This was my second design for a battery module. So it's made from one of these, or 2 of these 4x5 18650 holders. These are quite cheap to buy, and they basically just hold the cells in a quite tightly packed formation. So I took just one of these, filled it up with cells, and put another one on the top, and that holds the cells rigid. And then to keep it all held tightly together, you have to use cable ties to bind the whole thing together. So what I did was I drilled a small hole through the plastic in 4 locations, here, and here, and the same on the bottom. And then using the bus bar for the top and bottom as the essentially the thing that the cable ties can pull against to pull the whole thing tight. And that holds not only the bus bars in position, but also allows you to hold the whole pack. So it's quite tight, you can't pull that apart. So yeah, I designed this one with my previous one, so I don't intend to take more than ½ amp from each of these cells. So with 20 cells in this pack, that makes a total of a maximum of 10 amps. So this cable is taken from I think a 13 amp cable, suitable cable from the house, and so that means 10 amps will be no problem for this thin, it looks quite thin piece of copper, but a maximum of 10 amps it should be fine. And then again I've soldered these very fine, I think you can maybe see it here, very fine fuse wire to join each cell to the bus bar. This fuse wire will blow at about 1 amp max, so it's very thin. So again, if you try and pull too much current through this bus bar, these cell fuses will all just blow. And with this design, what I wanted to do was to have the positive and negative available at the top, so that I could effectively join multiple ones of these together, the negative going into the chock block, so you can go positive, negative, to put them in series. And so to do that, I had to drill a hole through one of these deep square segments here, quite a wide hole, and on the same position on the bottom, and then make the bottom bus bar in such a way that I could get around all the cells and then pass it up through that hole so that it comes out on the top. This wire here is for balance. When you connect enough of these together and you put the BMS on there and you need the balance leads, that's just what this is for. But it wasn't on there originally. I added it when I added the BMS. But yeah, it gives you the option to plug negative into positive into negative, so you can create a big long string of these if you want to. And it's quite a good design. It's one of the benefits of it is that it's a nice, neat, small size, but also it doesn't take very long to finish a whole pack. As you'll see with my next design that I did after these ones, I went much bigger, and one of the problems with that is it takes such a long time to finish each pack, and until you've got 14 of them you can't actually put it in service. So it takes a long time to get anything that you can start using, whereas with smaller modules like this you can get something where you can actually start using it much sooner. So yeah, to help me make these much quicker, I created a jig like this, which is just used to make the bus bar on the bottom, and then I get a piece of wiring, and then you could just effectively use it around the jig like this to make up the shape of the bus bar on the bottom, and then bend that up like that and that up like that. So then you have, you know, the shape of the bar that for the bottom with the two pieces that come up. And then what I would do is just using a sharp craft knife, cut the insulation off and just take all the insulation off of this part, and leave the part that goes up between the cells, this long neck bit. I'd leave the insulation on there, and so that would get you this sort of shape, you know, just a nice rectangle that goes evenly between each of the cells. And you can see the insulation is still on there where it goes up between the cells, and it comes out and the insulation's still on there on this side. So yeah, it's a good design. I originally made 14 of these, and so that I could make a 48 volt pack like the rest of my system uses. But for a while I connected just 7 of them in series and two parallels to make it into a 24 volt pack, and I use that for running a small inverter that I've got, which just has a single sort of 3-pin plug socket on it. I think it's about 500 watts, and for a little while I was just using that as a test bench to see what these were like, and I was running my TV off it for a little while in the front room. But yeah, so that was the second design I came up with, and like I said just now, the third design, I decided to go for something much bigger. So that would be this one. Now this is 80 cells in parallel, whereas the previous one was only 20 cells in parallel. So this is made up of 4 of those, 4 of these cell holders, and you can see on the very ends here you've got little teeth, so they can actually connect into each other to form a tight join. So you can put them together in arbitrary shapes, and for this one I've just put 4 of them in a line. So that gives me 20, 40, 60, 80 cells in parallel. And again, basically the same kind of technique. So you just fill it up with cells, put another one on the top, and then you have to clamp it all together. And again, the way I've clamped these together is using cable ties through small holes drilled through the center of the plastic holders, and the bus bar acts as the join that allows the cable ties to have something to actually bond onto or to pull onto to pull it all together. So it goes over the bus bar at this end and on the back edge as well. Well, actually this is the top edge. So now this pack, like the other, I don't intend to pull more than half an amp from each cell, but because there's 80 cells in here, that makes about 40 amps. In theory, you could pull 40 amps from this and only pull half an amp from each cell, which would be quite safe. So this bus bar has to be much thicker, so I'm using a 10mm length of 10mm earth cable as my bus wire on both ends, and I've got it pointing out at opposite ends, and this was so that you could effectively arrange them in this way. So you could effectively arrange them. Here you've got the negative, so when you then did the following cell, you would have it that way round, and the negative of that one would be right next to the positive, and then you can put a bolt. You could put a bolt then through the lug, and clamp these two tight together, and then again the negative is on this side. So for the next battery, you would again put it that way round, and again the negative and positive would be by each other, and you can put a bolt through there to clamp those tightly together. Now these are quite heavy, but it's very energy dense really for what you want. So it takes up the least amount of physical space to give you quite a lot of power. As I mentioned previously, the problem with this design is it takes an awful long time to not only get 80 cells to build a pack, but also when you actually come to build the pack, it takes an absolute age to solder every single one of these tiny fuses on both the top and the bottom of the pack. So that's 160 solder connections that you have to do, and it's quite a laborious task. So I think I actually prefer making many small ones rather than one of these big ones. Now again, to make this one, I made it easier on myself by building a jig to make the bus bars. So again, it's just a piece of wood with some screws in. I would get a length of this 10mm earth cable, and measure out 1 meter, just over 1 meter length of this, and then put it into the jig like this, and then bend it round down the sides to make the bus bar like that, and then finally thread it through these pieces at the bottom, and like this, and then bend it back like that to make this part here that sticks out. And once I'd done that, I would then cut with a craft knife and take all of this piece of insulation off, because that's where the soldering has to be done. But I'd leave this little piece at the end, as you can see on here, and the piece coming out along the neck, as you can see on there. That's still got the insulation on it. And then I basically just wrap some red or black tape to identify it as being the positive or the negative bar, and finally crimp a big lug on the end to make it possible to join them. And then because I used a jig to make them, they are guaranteed to all be the same size, and that means that when you come to stack the batteries next to each other and join them up, you know that these two ends are going to line up from one cell to the next. This little piece here is just again added on afterwards for balance lead for when they were put into service. So my idea with these ones would be to mount them on a wall, really, where they're not going to take up too much space. And that is something I will be working on in upcoming video in my power shed. At the moment I've got them just lying on a table in a 14S configuration connected to my inverter, so they are actively being used at the moment. I have one spare one in case there's a problem with any of the ones that are in service. If a cell goes bad or something happens, I can take that pack out, swap it in for the spare one, while I work on the other one without me effectively losing all of that work or losing all of that capacity from my storage system. So yeah, this is the spare one for the moment, but the other 14 are currently in service. With these cells at the moment, I'm not using them for anything, but like I say, I've got 14 of them, and what I might do is, once I get the larger ones mounted on the wall, I might basically tag these on the bottom, or I might try and build another wall mount to put these on so I can get these into service as well, because that's another sort of probably about 2 kilowatt hours of capacity, or maybe 1.8 kilowatt hours or something of capacity that I'm currently not using that I could be using. Okay, so that's all of my battery designs now. So my future videos will be about mounting those batteries on the wall of my power shed, particularly the big ones. At the moment I've just got them stacked up on a shelf so that they can be used, but the idea is to put them up on the wall where they won't take up any real floor space. So the next video will probably be me doing that, and then after that I've got some plans for an entirely new battery, which I will be going into again in a future video. So I hope you found that interesting. If so, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.